Hello everyone and welcome back to Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, the last of my 3 post-commentary videos because I messed up my audio recording. Wow. In-game audio recorded fine, by the way, so that's good. Yeah, I think this is the one where I get a random encounter because I'm being careless. I need to go to Ulai River for this quest. But basically, just before I get to it, there an enemy spawns. I could have hit the B button, but I did it a little too late, so I couldn't cancel my movement anymore. And that means we get a random encounter. I do speed this up a fair bit, actually using the emulator speed up feature. So there you go, la 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 la, going really fast. I will not ever be doing this in story missions or side missions. I will only possibly be doing this for random encounters. I didn't want to cut this, because I dislike cutting, and I think I'd done an intro that I kind of liked. I forgot what it was now, but I think it was kind of... Now it sounds like I'm promising a lot. You know, like, I explained the secret of eternal life, but sadly that recording is gone now. Stuff like something like that. It kind of sounds like that, but... Anyway, for some reason I didn't want to cut this out, so I decided, you know, I'm just going to use the speed up feature. And, yeah, I will use the speed up feature only for random encounters like this. Yeah, I won't use it ever in a story or side mission. I mean, I do go to regular speed for when I have to do precise, or not really precise, semi-precise stuff, I guess. Reason is, speed up means you are very inaccurate, because if you compress, say, a second down into a tenth of a second, then before, if you were hitting a directional key once, it would maybe register for, let's say, 2 frames, and thus only move your cursor once. It would now register for 20 frames, so moving your cursor a lot more. Basically, everything goes faster, but it becomes more inaccurate. So, when deciding where to move and which combat command to use and such, using speed up would actually slow me down, because it would take a long time to end up on the right command or on the right tile, because it's so fast. But I do speed up a fair amount of the movement and the attack animations like that. And I do speed up enemy turns, because they don't really concern me. I am overpowered enough that I can just basically ignore it. Just out of range to hit that guy, so I decide to go for the Moogle here. The reason I didn't go for that in the first place is that Moogle occasionally have an ability called... I don't know what it's called. Block arrows, maybe? Anyway, they have an ability that allows them to completely ignore projectile attacks. At least arrow attacks. I'm not sure if it works for guns as well. And yes, there are guns in the game. There's a Moogle class which uses guns, but I think they might be the only ones to use guns. No one else comes to mind, anyway. But yeah, we don't have access to that class yet. We will eventually, actually. I may have mentioned those before. There are some special characters which you can get by using specific mission items. I don't think we've got any of them yet, but basically, if you bring a certain item on a certain quest, you are able to get access to specific special characters. Or at least you have a chance to get them. It's still somewhat random, but yeah, it kind of works. And one of the special characters you can get is actually a musketeer, I believe they're called. Anyway, a Moogle using guns. And these special characters, I don't think their stats are terribly improved. but they, if I remember correctly, they always start out with a powerful ability already unlocked. And usually those are abilities that are difficult to learn, because firstly, to get the weapon that teaches it, you will have to spend quite a long time. And I think they are also all abilities that cost 999 ability points to learn or to master. So yeah, it is nice to get those special characters. There's some, for example, there's a red mage ability called, what's it called, double cast, I think? Which basically allows that red mage to cast 2 spells in a single turn, which is really, really strong. But it, yeah, it costs 999 to learn, and you don't get the item that teaches it quite quickly. And yeah, I could have adjusted the spell here quite easily, but meh. Guess my cursor was on the right spot already, and I was quite sure of the kill anyway. Okay, so that's the optional encounter done, and the side mission done as well, which is nice. And now in this mission, firstly we'll get a bit of story. Again, I'll try to read out the dialogues, but the timing is going to be different than the first time I recorded this, so I might not be able to fully do that. Looks like a normal river to me. I don't see any warping or bending at all. I'll have to just read a bit faster. Ooh, what? Funny, I had a strange feeling there. Read fast, read fast, read fast. Sorry. Whoa, what was that? The river, what's going on? And the story of this game is predictable, convoluted, it's typical Final Fantasy stuff. What was that? The black thing in the river swallowed me, and... What is this place? Am I still in Ivalice? Ivalice? I think Ivalice. Some kind of ruins? Doesn't look that ruined, really. Wait. Oh, look at the crystal. Is this a crystal? Yes, it is. I'll stop reading it out. It's kind of annoying. Yeah, it's typical Final Fantasy story stuff. It's, as a player, you work out very fast what's going to happen and what's going on in the world. And then you spend the rest of the story watching characters slowly coming to the same realization that any sane person would have reached in a matter of minutes. At least the characters in this are kind of okay, kind of likable. So it's not as bad as, say, Final Fantasy 13. Or, what was that other one? Valkyria Chronicles. The gameplay in Valkyria Chronicles is fun and fine. Nothing wrong with that. But the characters and story are so terrible. It's one of the reasons I'm never going to do an LP of that. It's kind of, I guess, a bit of a guilty pleasure. I do enjoy playing the game, but I'm trying to skip any story that I possibly can skip. I have seen people say the story is so great. Usually the same people who say the story of Final Fantasy games is so great. And the story in Final Fantasy games can actually sometimes be okay. What annoys me so much is the characters, and Valkyria Chronicles suffers from that problem to a ridiculous extent. So it's a war game. It's basically you versus the Nazis. They're not called Nazis, but they basically are the Nazis. And yeah, they're not. How to explain? The enemy, with a few exceptions, are generally painted very much in black. They are, at least a fair amount of them, are evil to the point of comic book villains. They are evil in unreasonable ways. Ignoring sound strategy strategical choices because they're not evil enough, basically. So, oh, we have 10 of our own guys down there and one enemy. Let's shoot a big explosive at that. There's 10 of our guys down there. I don't care. I am evil. Reminds me of a scene in, what was it? Knights of the Old Republic, I believe. Where they were trying to introduce the apprentice to our big bad enemy. And he just walks on a bridge. On a bridge of a starship. His own side. So, the starship is, no, it's not the Empire, it's the Sith fleet. Anyway, he walks on the bridge of that starship and randomly kills a guy just standing there. One of his own guys. In order to introduce him as an evil character. Which at the time struck me as tremendously stupid. There's a guy who works for you. He is doing something apparently important for the flying, controlling, fighting, whatever. Something that's needed because you wouldn't have a useless guy standing on the bridge. So you walk up, and in order to establish that you're evil, you kill him. And Valkyria Chronicles kind of suffers from that as well, to the point where some enemies, because they want you to hate them so much, they make them sort of really cartoony, super villainy. In quite an unreasonable extent. Anyway, in this mission, I mentioned this last episode. One of those blue eyes uses the roulette ability, which kills a random unit on the field. I believe bosses are immune to it, so you could not get a quick kill by getting a lucky roulette. I believe so, at least. No, it's actually the red eye, not the blue eye. Sorry. Anyway, that uses roulette, which one hit kills anything. And that includes your main character, he's not immune. And you can learn this ability on a blue mage. And here's how. The blue mage needs to have an automatic resurrection ability. Which basically is any kind of ability that makes it so that he revives the instant he dies. Reviving him manually after he died does not work. It needs to be an automatic resurrection ability, which you cannot get early game. I think mid game you get a ring that does it. And there's a spell at some point as well, I believe. But really, you want that. You need that actually to learn that ability. And then, you need to have that enemy on the field, and you need to have your blue mage be hit by it. And then automatically resurrect, and that's the only way to learn that roulette ability. Now it does highlight the boss as being a target, but I think the boss is actually immune to the status of death, I guess. And I actually get, funnily enough, the same character gets hit twice here, which is, I think it's random chance. I think I don't think the ability has any kind of weighted targeting. Quite often I've seen it where enemies have used roulette and just killed themselves instantly. So there is a downside to that ability, but it's still bloody annoying. But yeah, the way I want to do this fight is I want to kill all the eyes first and then do the boss. Just because killing the boss ends the fight, so if you haven't killed all the eyes yet, you kind of lose out on experience. The boss is not that strong anyway, I mean, it's acceptable. You can counter heal his damage using a single white mage quite easily. At least once all the other eyes are dead. If they're still alive, of course, they can do a bit of damage to you. And here I decided not to attack, because if I attack, the enemy would counter, and then he would be facing towards my main character, and I would have less chance to hit on my main character, who has more damage. So I decided to instead attack the eye, which had a lower chance to hit, but does not basically block my main character from having a good chance to hit. That's my thinking there. So yeah, I was talking about characters and stories. Now the story, it's fairly predictable. I mean, you watch the character kind of struggling to the realization that this is all a pretend world because, you know, that other kid was being bullied, and so this is the world where he can feel strong and powerful. And, you know, he's the king and ruler and lord of all creation. Which, I mean, I guess it's something that is not uncommon for people who are in that kind of situation to kind of make up their own dream world. Just usually it remains that, it doesn't become kind of reality. But anyway, as a player, you know that's the case very quickly. I mean, you realize pretty much as soon as the main character wakes up and thinks, oh, where have I gone? Okay, probably some kind of dream world. At least as soon as you notice that, well, maybe let's say 2 or 3 story cutscenes in. And this, by the way, was a very lucky action I found. So here's what happens. I hit the enemy, don't hit my own guy, hit the enemy, hit the enemy. So, chance to hit that eye was actually not good because it was staring at me. And the chance to hit my own guy was actually fairly good because I was attacking from the side. But I got really lucky here, and this played out exactly like I had hoped. I hit all the enemies in range of the spell and not my own guy. And there's another miss, which kind of worked out nicely. And you might notice this eye has enough MP still to keep spamming roulette. I don't know why he stops doing it actually, because the more of his allies die, the more useful roulette becomes. Because at the beginning there was 5 of them and 6 of us, so not quite 50-50, but there was a fairly good chance he was going to hit one of his own guys. Whereas now, there's 6 of us and 2 of them. So suddenly there's a 75% chance that he'll hit an enemy, and only 25% that he'll hit one of his own guys. And if he happens to hit the boss, that guy's immune. Now again, I'm attacking from this side. Firstly, to improve my chance to hit, and secondly, so that he'll turn them back on my main character. And I have a better chance to hit using air render. And those kind of moves are actually not necessarily deep strategy, but they're like, it's a little optimization that kind of makes sense. And I think I'm just doing a normal cure here on, yeah. In a boss fight like this, I'm kind of trying to not optimize for experience, but optimize for survival and victory. Normal fights, I would have probably just healed myself to, yeah, to get the 10 experience, but I don't know, I don't want to lose a boss fight because I've been careless and kind of made bad strategic choices because I wanted to get experience. I don't want that to happen. So here we're killing the last eye. And now only the boss remains, and he's already at critical health. And the experience and the kills are not so important to me. If I had killed the boss here, I would not have been sad, but my goal was to kill the boss last. It'll actually always be the goal in boss fights. I don't like the feeling of missing out on experience. Yay, you beat him, he says, surrounded by 5 of his friends who helped him do it. Though in general the characters in this game are actually fairly okay. I mean, they're a bit thick, as they always are in Final Fantasy games. But, I don't know, I've seen worse. Oh yeah, I was going to say about Valkyria Chronicles. So it's about war, and fairly grisly war at that. I mean, you know, the enemy basically builds up concentration camps to kill the Jews, even though they're not called the Jews, but the parallels to Nazi Germany are so strong, they might as well have called them the Nazis. And you're basically playing the tiny underdog country, it's Switzerland and Finland combined, kind of fighting the huge, massive enemy, but winning all the time. which totally makes sense, right? And again, your sort of the crew of soldiers you fight have an average age of about 12 and look like the average age is about 6. So they're basically kids. And it is a sad reality that in certain wars children are made to fight. And this happened in World War II, especially towards the end, where Germany was running out of troops fast. Children would fight, which is terrible. And Valkyria Chronicles does a very good job at glorifying the fact that you send 12-year-olds to war. Now, it's sort of an anime-style game, so the characters look young anyway in those kinds of things. But you do get personal background information on your soldiers, and one of the soldiers is 12. It says so. But because he's so skilled, he's allowed to fight in the army anyway, at the age of 12. Yeah, because that's gonna happen. I mean, it has no influence at all on the story or his combat capabilities. He's just as good as the 16-year-old sniper you have, or the 18-year-old sniper, but the amount of people in your army above the age of 25, fairly small. There's like maybe 5 or 6. And everyone else is kind of like... I used like again. Kind of like. Oh, sucks saying that. It's terrible. Anyway. Yeah, everyone else really, really young. And no one ever kind of draws attention to the tragedy of that. And, you know, children being forced to fight in war, that's tragic. There's nothing heroic about a 12-year-old picking up a gun, you know, shooting the Nazis. I mean, you can say it's heroic, but then you also have to admit that it's heroic for a 12-year-old Nazi to pick up a gun and fight for his country, as deluded as that thinking may be. At that age, he's obviously not able to comprehend politics or anything like that. He's defending his country from a foreign invader. And no one's ever going to sing the praises of the 12-year-old kids who tried to blow up Russian tanks before the fall of Berlin. Rightly so. It's tragic that they had to, and such actions should never be allowed in war, but then don't make us fight with 12-year-olds in our party. It's just silly. Plus the characters are all incredibly bland. They're they're not characters. They are JRPG tropes. To an extreme extent. Which is kind of sad. With a decent story and something slightly more befitting of the setting of a fairly crushing and dangerous war, they could have made something of it because the gameplay was great. But they build up this huge story twist where one of your party members actually happens to be the descendant of this ancient tribe of super warriors. And they're trying to make it all like... Again, like... I'm trying to avoid using that word in that sense, and just as a kind of a link. And they're trying to build it up to the point where you're really surprised at this development. But really, about 2 hours into the story, she kind of touches a stone and a door opens, and oh, let's all pretend like we're all. Everyone's suddenly surprised that the door has opened, but they just go in and kind of then never mention it again. When really, at that point, to me at least, it was obvious she was going to be one of those warrior people, because, well, how else would the door open for her? It stands to reason, right? Yeah, this episode's now actually almost over. I've talked about lots of stuff except for the actual game. Yeah, at this point, it is clear to everyone that this is a dream world made up by Mute. Yeah, he's just kind of living the dream, literally. And here we get, I think, the rubber suit. Which is a bit kinky. But yeah, anyway,